Every birthday party, my sister said adults only while her toddlers ran wild and broke everything. My children watched from the car as her kids got cake and gifts. I never complained. Last month, I threw my daughter the ultimate princess party when my sister's kids sobbed about not being invited. She stormed over demanding answers. I smiled and said something she wasn't expecting. My sister Evelyn and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's 3 years older and has always acted like she knows better about everything. When we both became mothers around the same time, her twins Jake and Emma are 6, my daughter Lily is 5, and my son Max is 3. I thought maybe we'd finally bond over shared experiences. Boy, was I wrong. The trouble started about 2 years ago when Evelyn began hosting what she called sophisticated birthday parties for her twins. The first time she mentioned it, I was excited. Finally, our kids could play together and create some cousin memories. But when I asked what time to bring Lily and Max, Evelyn gave me this condescending smile. "Oh, this is going to be more of an adults-only affair," she said, flipping her perfectly styled hair. "You know how it is. I want to actually enjoy conversations without constantly managing children. The twins are old enough to behave appropriately." I was confused, but it's literally a birthday party for 6-year-olds. Trust me, it'll be much more civilized this way. We're having it catered. There's going to be wine, real conversations. You'll love it. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I arranged for a babysitter for Lily and Max, bought beautiful gifts for Jake and Emma, and showed up in my nicest dress, ready for this sophisticated celebration. What I walked into was absolute chaos. Jake and Emma were running around like wild animals, screaming at the top of their lungs. Emma had chocolate cake smeared all over her dress and was wiping her hands on Evelyn's white couch. Jake was throwing pieces of his birthday cake at other kids. And when one little girl started crying, he just laughed and threw more. But here's the kicker. There were other children there. About 8 kids total, all running around unsupervised while the adults sipped wine and pretended not to notice the destruction happening around them. Evelyn's adults-only rule apparently only applied to my children. I watched in horror as Jake deliberately knocked over a glass of juice onto Evelyn's friend's purse. And instead of disciplining him, Evelyn just laughed and said, "Boys will be boys." When Emma started pulling books off the shelves and throwing them on the floor, another parent just smiled and said, "She's so spirited." The worst part, I kept thinking about Lily at home, asking why she couldn't come to her cousin's party. I told her it was just for grown-ups and she'd accepted it with a heartbreaking resignation that only a 4-year-old can manage. When I got home that night, covered in someone else's child's sticky fingerprints and with a splitting headache, Lily ran up to me, asking if I brought her any cake. I had to tell her there wasn't any left, which wasn't technically a lie. Most of it ended up on the floor or walls. I thought maybe it was just a one-off thing. Maybe Evelyn would realize how chaotic it had been and adjust for next time. I was so naive. The pattern continued for 2 years. Every single birthday party, every holiday gathering, every celebration Evelyn hosted came with the same rule. Adults only. But don't worry, it'll be fun. And every single time I'd show up to find the same chaos with Jake and Emma treating their guests like personal servants while the adults got progressively more drunk and less attentive. The breaking point came at Emma's birthday party last spring. I'd specifically asked Evelyn if this one could include all the kids since Lily had been asking why she never got to play with her cousins at parties. Evelyn had been big on the phone just saying, "We'll see how it goes." When I arrived, I immediately saw that familiar scene. Kids everywhere, chaos reigning, and my children notably absent from the invitation list. But this time was different. This time, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching through the living room window as Jake smashed a piñata with a baseball bat, not the plastic bat that came with it, but an actual wooden baseball bat, while Emma screamed that it was her turn and started hitting other children to get to the front. What made it worse was watching the other parents just stand there with their wine glasses, laughing as if destruction was entertainment. One mother was actually filming Jake demolishing the piñata while candy flew everywhere and smaller children ducked for cover. Another parent commented loudly, "At least they're getting their energy out." As Emma shoved a crying 4-year-old to grab fallen candy, the living room looked like a war zone. Evelyn's expensive white furniture was covered in chocolate handprints and juice stains. Someone had ground cake into a Persian rug, and there were torn wrapping paper and broken toy pieces scattered everywhere. Through the window, I could see Evelyn frantically trying to clean up spills while simultaneously trying to maintain conversations with other adults, looking increasingly frazzled and overwhelmed. But what really got to me was seeing the other children at the party, kids who were clearly overwhelmed and scared by Jake and Emma's aggressive behavior. One little girl was crying in the corner because Emma had snatched her party favor bag and dumped all the contents on the floor. A younger boy was hiding behind his mother's legs after Jake had deliberately stepped on his foot during musical chairs. These weren't bratty kids acting out. These were normal children being terrorized by 2 kids who had never learned boundaries. I watched a particularly painful scene unfold when they brought out Emma's birthday cake. Instead of the traditional singing and candle blowing, it turned into a food fight. Emma grabbed a handful of cake and threw it at another child because she wanted to blow out the candles again after already doing it once. Jake joined in and within minutes there was frosting on the walls, the ceiling, and every person in the room. The adults were too drunk to care. I could see Evelyn's face through the window and she looked like she was about to cry. But instead of addressing her children's behavior, she just kept apologizing to other parents and frantically trying to clean up the mess while Jake and Emma continued their rampage. Lily pressed her face against the car window and asked in the smallest voice, "Mommy, why can't we go inside? I want to play, too." Max, who was barely 3 at the time, pointed to the house and said, "Cake. Want cake?" I had to explain to my children again why they couldn't participate in their cousin's birthday party. I watched Lily's face fall as she saw other kids through the window getting cake and gifts and attention while she sat buckled into her car seat in a hot parking lot. Max started crying because he could see the colorful decorations and hear the party sounds but couldn't understand why we weren't going inside. "Are we in trouble, Mommy?" Lily asked. And that